Businesses are being urged to use artificial intelligence and new technology to better plan and manage their resources. Sustainability and the Environment Minister Grace Fu says it'll mean less waste and save costs. Companies can then produce more with less.
She's speaking to global enterprises and government officials at the Asia Tech Summit, focusing on technology's role in a digital future.
Ms. Fu shared that firms can tap technology to measure the energy efficiency of their business processes. Companies can also adopt new modelling methods to assess the impact of their actions on the environment. Now, such moves can have benefits on a global scale.
If I'm able to forecast weather pattern better so that I can sow the seeds at the right time, I can harvest before the next major typhoon arrives, it's really going to help us save a lot of food. That's really the impact of ICT, allowing us to produce more with less resources, less fertilizer, less water, just and when it's needed only, allow us to conserve resources around the world.
Well, as Singapore grows its niche in the digital economy, what about the tech startups that will make it happen? For more, we have Senior Minister of State for Communications and Information, Mr. Kiat, and Jennifer Zhang, CEO and co-founder of Wiz.ai, in the studio with us.
Now, also joining us over Zoom is Joshua Wong. He's co-founder and CEO of Hypotenuse AI. Welcome to everybody. Senior Minister, let's begin the conversation with you. Singaporeans are, very gung-ho when it comes to being entrepreneurial and starting up businesses. I mean, know that there are even young people before they leave college who try to start their own business. But are we prioritizing certain types of startups at all? What kind of products or services are they actually coming up with?
Oh, hi, Wisu, and hi, Dawn. Happy to be on this channel to talk about something very important, the tech startups. Some people don't know that tech startups account for about 1% of our total companies in Singapore, but contribute to about 2.4% of our GDP. They are driving the next phase of economic growth in Singapore. And if you talk to many of the industry players, Southeast Asia and Singapore is the place to be for tech innovation, especially for tech innovation in deep tech areas like artificial intelligence, including areas that are building on our competitive advantage of innovation, trust, and connectivity. So we are looking at how we can accelerate, supercharge the growth of tech startups in Singapore, for the region, and further afield.
All right, Senior Minister, Singapore, famously, World Bank still gives us number 2 in terms of ease of doing business. And we've got, our government is very, very supportive of the startup ecosystem in this country. How are we positioning ourselves against competitors such as Hong Kong and Shenzhen?
Well, Singapore has a few competitive advantage or areas which many of tech startups prefer to be in Singapore. One such area is our connectivity, both physical as well as digital connectivity to important markets around the world. And I think yesterday you had a session here with SSS Janil and Mr. Irving Tan talking about a connectivity blueprint. The second advantage is the ecosystem. Startups don't grow in isolation. They need an ecosystem of funders, investors, partners, like-minded engineers, as well as many people, customers. And Singapore, because we are a financial hub, a business hub, a service hub, we have an ecosystem of customers and investors. And more importantly, I think we have the right people. So in Southeast Asia and Singapore, we are the right place, right time, but importantly, the right people are all here.
Jennifer, you're one of the young individuals who was brave enough to want to be your own boss and to start your own company. And we understand that your startup sells humanized voice AI. Is that right? And that's for customer service. How do you differentiate yourself, though, from competitors?
I think, we have two things. Number one is really localization. I think, most giants are focused on general products, but we actually dive into deeper for the enterprise applications and really handling noise cancellation and accents and also domain terms, helping them really can achieve the last mile delivery for the enterprise. And second one is not only doing voice, actually we are expanding to the omni-channel And we actually recently launched the first generative AI enterprise solution in the region. So that's actually, we kept catch up with our innovation capability and continuously actually offer the best for AI solutions in the Southeast Asia region.
Right, trying to keep ahead of everybody else.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's bring Joshua in on the conversation now. He's joining us on Zoom. Joshua, your startup, it sells a writing assistant for copywriting. It also comes up with content that's mostly used for marketing. That's a market that we've heard about a lot. There are many players in that field. How do you actually kind of try to do things differently?
Yeah, great question. So two big things over here. The first is that what we focus on is actually personalizing our content to every brand and every company that uses us. So we don't just want to provide AI text that is generic or AI content that is generic and everyone gets the same thing. We actually get our AI models to learn from the past data that a company has written so that what comes out is actually written specifically for that brand. And the second for us as well is that we build workflows specifically for marketing teams that allows us to have entire flows where multiple people can work on it at once. There is a space where they have tools like checkers in place. And so all of that can come in a very, very smooth flow for multiple people in as well.
Well, Senior Minister, looking at these young entrepreneurs, both of you, obviously you'll be thinking of how to differentiate your products to succeed in the market, but that doesn't always work. What is our approach and appetite to failure?
Well, I think if you think about fearing to fail as a startup, I think you're starting to fail already. Because startups, you're intended to fail because of every 10 startups, probably only one succeed, right? And I would say, don't think about it as a rate of failure, but think about the rate of learning. How you're learning from failures, doing better and bouncing back better next time round. I look at Jennifer and Joshua, very good examples. They are young people starting up on a project, build their own company, and I'm sure they face many challenges, many failures along the way. But what makes it so important is to provide an environment for them to fail fast and to bounce back more quickly. And I think having the community, I talked about right people just now about in Singapore, is about helping our startups here accelerate the learning journey, supercharge them, turbocharge them. So when they fail, they can pick themselves up quickly, but also share good practices with the community. And for example, Jennifer and Joshua, they are part of many of the government programs in which we bring in together like-minded partners, mentors, prime the demand for them, create connectivity networks for them, bring in talent for them, so that they have a highest chance of success. In Singapore, we cannot guarantee that every startup will succeed. But what we can guarantee is to give them the best chance to succeed here in Singapore.
So fail often, fail fast. It's kind of like a dive into the deep end, isn't it? So Jennifer, on the back of what Senior Minister was saying about those big challenges, what were the ones that you faced, and were the biggest ones scaling up?
I think for us, we're quite lucky. So because we're starting like 2 seats next door, like Block 71. Now we have 280 people staying globally and serve 16 countries. And I think starting with actually the first language we built is actually Singlish. It's super expensive, expensive and it's difficulty to collect the corpus and also making the very high accuracy. And after we conquer that model, actually we can conquer the rest all the language in Southeast Asia and make us actually building the high technology barrier. That's actually the first part we learn from here. But second one's actually really about the talents, which we try to hire. And sometimes as a local company here, when you go overseas, you don't know who should be your right person as a first batch landing there.
Right.
But then now actually we have trained a lot of team here and we bring them to the new market and help us to building a team there. So that's the two things. Actually, we're starting with the difficulty, but after we conquer that, actually we're building our advantage in that way. Yeah.
Right. Finding trusted partners abroad, a big problem, and I think that's something that the government has also been helping startups with as well. Joshua, what about for you? The challenges that you faced, similar to Jennifer? I mean, tell us something about the hurdles, perhaps.
Absolutely. I'd say one of the biggest, as Jennifer mentioned, would be hiring as we scale up our team. And for us, I think we're in a space as well that has very heavy deep tech, as well as the business models sometimes that we work on are quite different from some of the traditional models that occur around here. And so one challenge has been trying to find the right talent, both in terms of engineering, deeply technical people, ones that know how to work on AI, as well as know how to scale systems, and also people who are able to scale up a company from a business perspective as well. For these, we've also had a lot of government support. I think, as SMS Han was mentioning, schemes around IMDA, ones like their scholarship program have actually provided us with additional talent over here that we've been able to hire and support as well.
Actually, I want to add one thing, because I do remember I joined a credit program in IMDA. So they really help us to open the first customer in Southeast Asia. Because at the beginning, nobody know how to deploy the voice local accent AI. And they actually have a team member with us to talking with all the innovation teams in the different company and gave us opportunity to have the first trial, have the first POC. That's helped us building the first model.
So important to get that first opportunity.
Yeah, actually, I mean, that's the reason why I talk about supercharging the startup ecosystem here, because startups, you have, like Joshua and Jennifer mentioned, so many issues you have to deal with. You have to deal with rental, overheads, hiring of first staff, dealing with bank accounts, looking for first customers. There is so much overwhelming challenges for most startups. But in Singapore, through different programs in IMDA, for example, the Open Innovation Program, the Accreditation Program, we try to provide an environment in which startups can be turbocharged. For example, finding a first customer, helping them to navigate the region, for example, how to think about what's in Thailand, Indonesian markets, the Vietnamese markets, what's so different, how to navigate the HR rules, the manpower rules, and most importantly, is providing the first customer so there's a track record for the startups.
I agree.
And that is an important jumping point for most of the startups that are based in Singapore, but they are not confined to Singapore because the world is a market.
Sorry, explain that to me again. You said the first customer to set up a track record. What exactly does that entail?
So there are two programs that I would like to just touch on. One is the Open Innovation Platform that IMD has. What it does is that it brings customers from all over the region. And Singapore, many of the decision makers are based here. So you may be running a agriculture business in Indonesia, you might be doing a manufacturing business in Vietnam, but many of the decision makers are here. And many of these big companies or even smaller companies are facing the need to digitally transform their businesses. So there are many problem statements. How do I use AI to determine when to harvest my crops? How do I use IoT, Internet of Things sensors to track my logistic goods? Having that problem statement, putting them here and opening up to the whole community of solvers here in Singapore. And through the Open Innovation Platform, we have 12,000 solvers, including many startups. So for many of these companies, that is their first customer. The second thing that we do through the accreditation program is to have a green lane procurement for government agencies. So government agencies, like Jennifer, for example, if you want to pitch your project or pitch your product to a government agency, you need terms and conditions, you need track record, because nobody trusts you with the first project. But what IMD does with the accreditation program is to give them that backing. So the green lane procurement, the government agencies can use the startup project or startup product with confidence. And that often is the first customer as well.
Yeah. Okay, final question for Jennifer, and then you take one to Joshua. Humanized AI voices. Actually, what you mentioned, I studied this years ago. So how to recognize, how to reproduce. And we had Singapore scholars doing it precisely, concentrating on the Singapore accent. And it was very competitive. This was early 2000s. I fancy it's likely more competitive now. How are you staying ahead of everyone else having similar ideas to yourself?
I think we are more driving two things. Number one is really the data. We're working with all the enterprise and we collect during the process, we know how people are going to say this, with intention will say this. And second one is applications. Like, are you actually using it to customer acquisition? Are you using it for customer service? And the different ways people say that. Those are two things that really driving the wheels, how you accumulate all things to drive the products can really lead in the industry and really practical for the enterprise.
Joshua, a quick final question for you before we wrap this discussion up. Your growth plans for Hypotenuse AI, what's next?
Good question. So for us, a lot of this is around scaling up and scaling up globally. We've been fortunate to be a very global company from day one. We started out in a mix between US and Singapore. Our main hub is in Singapore, but US is our largest market in terms of our customers. And for us, it's about expanding out both our team. We're starting to hire a larger team in the US, and also together with focusing on a lot more enterprises that we're taking in as customers as well throughout the world. And together with that, building up lots more features and making a much stronger form of intelligence that customers or companies can use and take it as if it's a bespoke AI that is trained specifically for their own marketing content.
Oh, thanks so much.
Dawn and Rachel, if I could just bring back to why are we doing this? An innovation and technical ecosystem will be an important part of our next growth of our Singapore economic story, driven by innovation and knowledge, and importantly, creating good jobs and opportunities for Singaporeans in the next phase of digital economy. And Singapore, the three important critical ingredients are connectivity, innovation, and trust that will set us apart. So tech ecosystem is a vibrant one, but ultimately it's about creating good jobs and good opportunities for all Singaporeans.
Oh, thanks for that final thought. Senior Minister of State for Communications and Information, Mr. Tan Kiat. How Jennifer Zhang, CEO and co-founder of Wiz.ai, of course, and Joshua Wong joining us on Zoom, co-founder and CEO of Hypotenuse AI.